Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land, where you check out your top stories, and you do it every Monday to Thursday, along with me and my sometimes co-host, my neighbor's dog that doesn't stop barking. But these days, I'd rather have the neighbor's dog barking than the sounds of sirens. Speaking of sirens, there are still rockets being fired towards southern communities or southern areas. And last night there was a massive barrage of rockets fired towards central Israel. It really was probably one of the most terrifying barrages that we've had. My poor husband was caught up in it, having to run for cover as he was in an open parking lot here to duck as the rockets came in and the Iron Domes intercepted. But this is the reality. It is still ongoing here in Israel, and it is important that the world knows that while all focus might be on the Gaza Strip, there are still rockets being fired towards Israeli civilians from within civilian infrastructure in Gaza. This is a war crime. This is a double war crime, in fact, because it's fired from one civilian populace into another. So let's take a look at some of the updates on day 45 of Israel's war with Hamas. And we go back to Chifa Hospital, and it has been confirmed by the IDF that the IDF, working with the World Health Organization, managed to evacuate at least 30 babies, premature babies with incubators, to Egypt safely. There has been a lot of activity in and around Chifa Hospital as the IDF exposed the tunnels and how hostages were kept in Chifa Hospital to the global community. Now, the IDF have also stressed that not one civilian inside Chifa Hospital has been killed during the military operations there. We've also heard from a British doctor who worked in Chifa Hospital, who is now out of Gaza, and who said it was common knowledge, in fact it was an open secret, that there were parts of the hospital that definitely were not for civilian or for medical use. And he intimated that doctors and nurses used to walk around very, very hush-hush, very, very scared that if anything happened, they could be executed by members of Hamas. The use of civilian infrastructure, schools, mosques, private homes, hospitals, we've been speaking about it for years. This is not a new phenomenon, and it's important that viewers, that the world understands exactly what type of monsters we are dealing with. I think the world needs to understand that the same monsters that came into our peaceful communities on the border and murdered our babies, burning some of them, decapitating some of them, are not above using their own civilians for their own nefarious means. The IDF also announced earlier today that they are encircling Jabalia in the north of Gaza and preparing the ground for a military operation. To date, 68 of Israel's finest soldiers have fallen in defense of the country, and each death that is announced is a stab in the heart. These soldiers are very, very precious to us, each and every one of us. And our collective heart breaks a little bit more every time a soldier falls. We have also lost about 3 canine warriors. It is important that we pay tribute to our canine warriors as well, doing phenomenal work on the ground and catching those terrorists and protecting the lives of our soldiers. And we salute them as well. Last night, Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced that they would be recalling Israel's ambassador to South Africa. Ambassador Eliav Belotsakovsky is the envoy to South Africa, a country that has been probably the most hostile towards Israel since the start of this war. At the outset, South Africa did not condemn the heinous terror attacks by Hamas. In fact, they reiterated and doubled down on their support for the Palestinian people. Now, there is a big difference between supporting Palestinians and supporting Hamas. I think all people of good conscience support the Palestinians, want them to have have a better life for themselves, don't want to see any civilians, especially children, being caught up in the dregs of war. However, Hamas is an internationally prescribed terror organization, and the South African government backed this up with a call to Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh by the Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor. President Cyril Ramaphosa also expressed his solidarity wearing a Palestinian scarf, and the Secretary General of the ANC tweeted out, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," which of course is a call for genocide. South Africa has taken it a step further and will discuss whether or not to close the Israeli embassy in South Africa, which would have big impact not just on South Africa's Jewish community, but on the Christian community and Muslim communities as well, as many people come to Israel every year for tourism, for religious purposes and other purposes. The South African government have also pushed for the ICC, the International Criminal Court, to arrest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the top brass of the IDF for crimes against humanity. Somebody should tell them that there are delegations out here from various countries investigating Hamas's crimes against humanity, which they hope to charge at the ICC. It's really, really disturbing to see how South Africa has gone from being this bastion that fought the apartheid regime to literally being a proxy for Hamas. Last night at UN headquarters in New York City, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, along with Musab Hassan Youssef, the son of Hamas. Read his book, it's really, really excellent. Hosted a screening of the body cam footage, all the footage that has been put together of the terror attacks on the 7th of October. It is very, very disturbing. I haven't seen all of it. I have seen some of it, and I couldn't bring myself to accept the invitation when it was shown here to see my fellow citizens being so mercilessly slaughtered. Notably missing from the screening was Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who did manage to tweet out that in his time as the Secretary General of the UN, he hasn't seen such a catastrophic death rate as there is in Gaza. Obviously, he hasn't heard about Tigray or Ukraine or Syria. So Secretary General Antonio Guterres, you might want to check those horrific incidents out before hitting your computer. The over 300 ambassadors who attended, most were absolutely horrified by what we're seeing. Some left the room unable to take the atrocities for a minute longer. And this has been a common response. People who have seen it, journalists, parliamentarians, celebrities who Gal Gadot screened it for, are very, very visibly shaken and upset by the level of atrocity that they have witnessed. Meanwhile, there is a lot of talk in the media about a possible deal with hostages. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu, the IDF chief spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, have stressed that there are no deals unless you hear it from Israeli officials themselves. So earlier today, Ismail Haniyeh, one of the leaders of Hamas, took to Telegram to announce that they're very close to a truce. Those were his words, not ours, with Israel. Israel has been reticent to enter into any kind of truce or ceasefire because we know that this is an opportunity for Hamas to rearm, reorganize, and re-attack Israeli civilians. This is also a thought that has been spoken about by White House officials, saying that we could be close to the end. And even a Qatari chief negotiator said that we are close to a deal. However, we haven't heard from Israeli officials. So I would caution everybody out there, until we hear from the IDF or the Prime Minister's office, there is no final deal. But some of the clauses being touted are an exchange of about 50 to 100 hostages for 300 Palestinians who are in jail, a possible 5-day ceasefire and 300 trucks of humanitarian aid. Again, I want to stress there is no deal until we hear from Israeli officials, Israeli government officials, in other words, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, the Defense Minister, or the spokesperson of the IDF to confirm it. Until then, no deal has been made. Meanwhile, the families of hostages will meet with His Holiness the Pope in Vatican City before going on to meet with senior officials in the Italian government. So those are all of today's updates. Don't forget to check out our comprehensive coverage on our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook page at Lottel Site, our YouTube channel at the Israel Brief, and our Twitter account or X account at Lay of the Land 5. I don't know what his accounts are, but he does make a lot of noise. I'm Marlene Marks, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.